me Z and T, cause I'm the best in the game. I got the fame, the style that isn't lame.
Hey, is there a cassette tape anywhere?
I sure do. This cassette is the best, I can attest. Best cassette in the east to the west. Yeah, I ain't a rapper. This cassette's dapper. I'm no capper.
Okay, do you mind if I take that off your hands?
Yeah, sure.
Alright, thank you.
No problem, bro.
And this is this week's Closet Classics.
Hi, I'm Mr. Papadonis from the Burlington Science Center, and we're here today to discuss, a vegetable that we find this time of year called, of course, the pumpkin. And I thought that this would be a great time of year because this is the time of year that we harvest pumpkins and we use them for Halloween. And I thought today we could do a lot of fun things with a pumpkin. Whatever we do today, I suggest that you also have your parents involved because we'll be using some candles and we'll be using a knife, and it's something that you want to do at home, not by yourself, but with a parent. The pumpkin is a vegetable that has been around for really hundreds of years. The Native Americans used it for planting. They used to use it after it would rot for fertilizer. They used it for food. And we use it today for a variety of things. One of the things that we use it for, of course, is called the jack-o'-lantern, which is a Halloween celebration. And after some research, I found that it was actually the Irish people that came to the United States that brought with them the thought of the jack-o'-lantern. And they were always concerned with ghouls and ghosts and mysterious things around the celebration of Halloween. And in Ireland, they used to actually use a turnip and carve a turnip into the face of a ghoulish-looking character. And they do that to represent the jack-o'-lantern, which is the person that was considered a watchman. Well, here in the United States, when they came over, they found that pumpkins were everywhere, and they decided to use the pumpkin. So that's actually where we got the idea of carving the pumpkin into what we call a jack-o'-lantern. I have a question that I'd like to ask everyone to think about throughout today's program, and it's a scientific one that requires some thought. I'd like you to take a look at this pumpkin right here. And what I'm going to do with this pumpkin later at the end of the program is actually take it and drop it very, very gently into this tank of water. And what I'd like you to think about over the period of the program is, will this pumpkin float or sink in the water? And as we go through the carving of the pumpkin and looking inside it, think about what you're looking at, and that might help you solve the little mystery that we're going to look at the end of the program. Well, I think the first thing that we should do is actually cut into our pumpkin. And I suggest that if you do this at home, of course, it's a messy job. You use some newspapers and spread them out, and once again, have a parent help you so that you don't cut yourself. You may want your mother or father or older brother or sister to actually help you do the cutting. And the first thing that you want to do, of course, would be to cut, and it can be tough, right into the top of the pumpkin. We have to cut out a hat, I like to call it a hat, in a circular manner. If you use a serrated knife, it actually cuts a little better. And we'll pop that right out. There we go. And I like to cut off some of the pulp material that's located here. And there are one or two ways you can do this. If you really want to get dirty right off, dig your hand right in and start to pull out. You'll notice that the material you're pulling inside, of course, seeds come, but you'll also notice a stringy material that, the seeds are really stuck into. We call that stringy material the pulp of the pumpkin, and it's not there just for no reason at all. It's actually there to help support and hold the seeds in place inside the pumpkin. You'll also notice, of course, that if you look inside the pumpkin, there's an awful lot of empty space besides the pulp and the seeds. And then if you get yourself a spoon, you can really clean out the rest of the pulp material and the seeds. The pulp material isn't the material that people use when they make food products, pumpkin pies or whatever it might be. It's actually the rind material, which is the solid part here of the pumpkin. The rind is what's used to make pumpkin pie or whatever dessert treats that people like to do. Some people even make pumpkin muffins. The Native Americans used to have a great idea. They used to hollow the pumpkin out like this, and then what they would do is they would fill it full of sugar, cinnamon, and then bake it in an oven for a couple of hours, and it would come out as the sweetest treat. And you might even want to try that if you had some time. Once we get all of the seeds out, I like to take the seeds and separate them from the pulp, and then a little later on rinse them out and dry them overnight on a paper towel. And there are two things you can do. One of the things that you can do is take them and just put them in an envelope. I do this every year, and store them with a date on it, put them in a drawer or something over the winter, and use them to plant pumpkins again next year. The other thing that you can do, of course, is to rinse them, let them dry, and add some salt and bake them. And at the end of the program, I'll give you a little recipe that you can look at for making pumpkin seeds to eat a little later on. Well, now that I've carved the inside of my pumpkin out, I'm going to do what most of us like to do, and that is add a candle to the inside. But before I actually add the candle, I'm going to clean up my hands here, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the science of what fire is all about. We've all seen a candle burn at one time or another, but you know, there's some good science that you should learn when you look at a flame. And in order to have a fire, we need certain things. If we take a look at the board that I put over here, firemen and scientists like to call this what we call the fire triangle. And the reason they call it as a triangle is that you need three things on the point of a triangle in order to create a fire. One of the most important things that we need, of course, would be oxygen, air for the fire to burn. You see, if we're missing just one of any of the fire triangle items, you can't have a flame burn. The second thing that you need to have a fire would be fuel, something to actually burn. And then the third would be some source of heat. And once you have oxygen, some sort of fuel, and heat all combined together, you can have a fire or a flame. And I'd like to start right out by lighting my candle, and you can think to yourself, do we have all three things? Well, we have a match, which is supplying the heat. We have a candle, which is supplying the fuel. And all around the outside of my candle, we have oxygen, which is allowing the flame to burn. And I'd like to see if we can get a candle. I'm going to gently place the candle inside my pumpkin, just like this. Oh, doesn't want to seem to cooperate. We'll have to relight it. This is where you really need a parent to help you out, because it's sometimes a little tricky. Now, once my candle is lit, let's see if we can get a camera close-up on that. There it is. I'm going to now place my lid on top of the pumpkin, and let's see what happens. We'll wait a few moments here to see. Now, some of you already can guess what may happen after a few moments. We still have the heat from the candle flame. We still have the fuel from the candle wax. But we're missing one thing. What's that one thing we're missing? The one thing that we still have it. I didn't leave it on long enough. We'll try it again. And some of you may say, well, the candle was still lit. Well, if you really thought that out, why is the candle still lit? The third thing that we're taking away here is oxygen, but there's a fair amount of oxygen still inside the pumpkin. And until that oxygen's used up, that candle will remain burning. Well, let's try it again and see if we've used up all the oxygen and see if our candle is either lit or out. Well, it's out. So we know that we need 3 things to keep our candle burning. We need oxygen, we need fuel, and we need heat. Now I'm going to start to cut a face in my pumpkin, which of course will turn it into what we call a jack-o'-lantern. And I'm going to start by just cutting one eye. And I like to cut triangular shaped eyes, mainly because they're probably the easiest, but some people spend a great amount of time cutting out their pumpkins, and they do rather ornate and complicated eyes, but I'm only going to cut one now. And let's try my experiment with a candle one more time. I'm going to relight my candle, and I'm going to place my lid back on top. Let's see if we can do this. And I'll point this to the TV camera. There, as you can see, it's lit. And I'm going to put a cover back on top of my pumpkin, just like that. And once again, we're going to count probably to 15, and let's see what happens to our candle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Can we get a camera shot on that, a tight shot? And you'll notice that our candle is out. And the reason that our candle is out is because even though we have one hole cut right here inside our pumpkin, you're probably saying to yourself, well, gee, the air got in. But something else happened. As the candle was burning, it was drawing air inside through our single hole, but the air which was being burnt didn't have anywhere to get out because I had the cover on, and it used up the oxygen inside the pumpkin, couldn't replenish it with any new oxygen, and it went out. So what I'm going to do now is continue to carve out my jack-o'-lantern, and we'll put another eye in here. And this may look more now like the jack-o'-lantern that you're used to seeing, and of course some sort of funny-looking nose. My favorite part is cutting out the mouth, because you can do all sorts of funny things with the mouth. We'll try going zigzags. I think we're going to make this one into somewhat of a happy pumpkin face. And now, if we light our candle and put it back in, let's take a look and see what happens. And we'll put our lid back on. And let's see if we can turn that to the camera. And now we have our jack-o'-lantern. And of course, as you know, this jack-o'-lantern will burn until the candle actually burns all the way down. And it has plenty of oxygen. Actually, the oxygen, now you can figure out, goes in through the mouth, right through the mouth area. Where's our mouth? Right here. Goes right in through the mouth. And the air that's being burnt can escape out the eyes and the nose, so that there's always new, fresh oxygen going inside to give our candle oxygen, fuel, and heat for our fire triangle. And this will burn, as I said, right down to the bottom. The thing that we can do to prove to you that oxygen is actually being sucked in through the jack-o'-lantern's mouth, and I'm going to take a little piece of newspaper here. And again, this is something that you want to do with your parents around. I'm going to remove my jack-o'-lantern hat or top, and I'm going to just burn the newspaper and blow it out very, very quickly so that I create some smoke. And I'm going to hold the smoking paper in front of the jack-o'-lantern's mouth. And let's see if we can very carefully see if some of that smoke is just drawn in. And we'll see if we can get a tight shot of this. I guess the draft, one of the problems is that the draft in the studio is, due to the air conditioning, is blowing the smoke away. But you can try this at home because you have to blow it out and create some smoke and put it right in front of the jack-o'-lantern's mouth. And if you do it in a home with all the doors shut and where it's very, very still, you'll watch the smoke go right in through the mouth area and then right up through here. And you can give that a try. One of the things that I thought you'd enjoy seeing is that pumpkins, and you've probably seen them come in all different shapes and sizes. Scientists have studied for years on how to actually get pumpkins to grow in different sizes. We can actually go from the smallest type of pumpkin that you can buy maybe in your grocery store or farm stand to a larger version that I brought here that really makes a very, very nice jack-o'-lantern, and you can either decorate it by coloring it or cutting it out and using a candle like I've done here. Or I even brought with me, I found this article as an example of one of the world's heaviest pumpkins. Can we get a tight shot on that? And this is one here that weighed over 600 pounds, grown by a boy. And that's quite a pumpkin. They actually needed a crane to move the pumpkin, and there was enough pumpkin there to make about 400 pumpkin pies, they figured out. So that's one of the world's heaviest pumpkins from 1988 that I found. Oh, I found something else. As I was walking through the fields the other day, a farmer's fields, I noticed one of these. Actually, two of them I picked up. And I have a question for you. Maybe some of you already know. I wonder what these are. Think about it for a second. They look like a pumpkin. They're shaped like a pumpkin. There's only one problem. They're green. Well, for those of you who have never visited a pumpkin patch, pumpkins grow on vines very, very close to the ground. They can grow on long vines up to 50 feet. But until they're ripe, they're found green. And as you'll notice at the top of this one right here is just about ready to turn that bright orange color that we see today. But a non-ripe pumpkin, one that's grown over the summer period, is found green, and it's not until that it's actually ripe that it turns that bright jack-o'-lantern orange. Well, that brings us to the close of our program, and I promised you that we'd do this little science demonstration. I asked you, I said, what will happen if we take my pumpkin and we gently drop it in this tank of water? I'd like you to think about what we saw in the program. When I cut open our jack-o'-lantern or our pumpkin's top, you'll notice that I pulled out seeds, I pulled out the pulp, but the majority of the pumpkin was empty. I wonder what it was full of. Think about it, and here we go. If you guessed that the pumpkin would float, give yourself a round of applause. Because if you looked carefully during the program, you noticed that our pumpkin was full of mostly air. And air, of course, allows things to float because it's lighter than water. On behalf of the Burlington Science Center, we hope that you have a safe and happy Halloween season. We hope that you take great care in carving your pumpkin. Make sure that if you do the experiments that we did today with the pumpkin, please make sure that you have your family, an adult, your parents with you carving and lighting the candle. And if you'd like to wash the seeds off and roast yourself some pumpkin seeds at the end, there's the recipe. Thank you.